We're live at Dream City Church in Phoenix, Arizona, with Larry and Carol Snap for Blended Families Ministry. And now, introducing Larry Snap.
Thanks, Kenyatta. Welcome, everybody out there in Facebook land. We're going to be going live on Facebook here. Blended Families Ministry Facebook page. Glad to be able to start the new semester this year. It's basically 12 lessons. Carol mentioned in the announcements that due to Easter coming up, there will be a couple of weeks that we need to do 2 classes in 1 week. So we can usually do that. It might just take a little longer than an hour to get through them. And we're good. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you get that figured out. Oh, yeah, I forgot to actually sign in. Yeah, I did on the other thing. Forgot to on that. All right. Anyway, first lesson, it just makes sense to start out with, since this is a marriage and family class, what is a godly marriage, right? We want to figure out what is it we're supposed to be doing and why. So this is where we start. What is a godly marriage? Throughout the class, we'll be talking about things that will help you be a better Christian, a better spouse, a better parent, and just a better Christian. So what is a godly marriage? Well, we like to start at the beginning. So in Genesis, right, in the beginning, God created everything. After everything was created, the Trinity, this is one of the first times we really see that there is a Trinity. It says, let us make man in our image. Okay? So the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are all kind of talking amongst themselves like, let's create man in our image. We can, have fun with them, right? Have a relationship. Watch them do stuff. And be part of what they do and experience their experiences. Now, it was one thing to create man in God's image, but the main reason that we were created was to have a purpose. So why are we here, right? One of the main ones was to take dominion over God's creation. All the animals, the plants, everything. So we were created with a purpose, and that was to take dominion over everything on the earth. Now, not too long after that, okay, God has created everything. Adam was given an assignment to name all the animals. Now, it's just Adam. And we find, God, after he decided to make man in his image, God created man from the earth in his image. Okay? So Adam was created in the image of God, in the complete image of God. So everything God wanted to create in a human being was in Adam at that point. But Adam was given time. He had to name all the animals. He was in charge of everything. And after whatever time that was, then God said, for the first time, it's not good for man to be alone. Everything else was good and pronounced good. But then God said, it's not good for man to be alone. So he decided to create a helpmate for Adam that was equal, just as valuable, compatible, comparable, all those kind of words. But one of the most important things in this process was God created man in his image, and it's a whole image. Now, what we find is God created woman from the man, not from the earth, like he did the man. Now, he also created woman from the man for the man as the helpmate, right? The companion, right? Now, what we find here is after he did that, Adam named the woman. Like, whoa, man. That's awesome. But God told him to become one flesh. Okay, so you have one image that was in Adam, created from the earth, and then God split that image into two parts, a male and a female. And then he told him, be one flesh. So part of that becoming one flesh is the continuity of the original one flesh that was in Adam. So now, whatever God had created as far as the image was concerned in Adam, now it's all still there, but it's in two pieces. And he commanded them to be one, to have one mind, have one accord, act together as a unit, a team, right? Not just two separate fleshes. And it's really important to realize how he did that, because he could have created a woman out of the dirt. And it would have been two separate images, two separate creations, and then try to put those together. Yeah, Karen.
When you said that, I thought of the image of the brain. How the brain
The two halves.
one with left and right hemisphere, but yet they're to work together. And
Right.
harmony. And that's how God made
Yeah.
it. That's what the image came to me when you said
Yeah, well, it's, to be one flesh, it's kind of to be of one mind,
Amen.
right?
Amen. That's right.
So to be of one mind, you have to have both halves of the brain working. Right? So to me, that was a pretty big revelation to understand how the creation was done and the purpose behind it. Right? So, okay, so now God has created man from the earth. He's created woman from the man. And he's told them to become one flesh. And they have a purpose. Okay? Adam's supposed to be tending the garden that he was put in. And there was, you can do anything you want in there except eat of this one tree here. Now, like it says, in the center of the garden, there was the tree of life and a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right? So you got the tree of life. And if they were to eat of that, they'd live forever. They'd be immortal. And if they ate of the other one, which they ended up doing because they were deceived, Eve was deceived into eating of that tree. And then she convinced Adam, hey, man, this is really good. You should try this. He said, okay. And then, all hell broke loose. Literally. So they sinned, they disobeyed God, and it's important to realize that when God created them, they had free will. They had a brain, they had a mind, they had, I can do this or I can't, or I shouldn't. But then Satan comes along and he tempts them, and, Eve falls, and then Adam followed suit. And up to that point, okay, so they're running around the garden, no need for clothing. They were pure, there was no sin. They were unashamed. But once they had tasted the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, now they knew they were naked. And now they were ashamed because of sin. Right? Now, because in God's kingdom, the only way to deal with the sin is there has to be bloodshed. So, they were ashamed. They tried to use plant, everybody says fig leaves, right, to cover themselves because now they're ashamed. And they were trying to hide from God because they were ashamed and they were guilty. And, obviously God knows where they are. I mean, they're in the garden somewhere. They got to be in there because that's where he put them. And they could hide. But the first thing we do when we sin is we try to cover it up. And we try to hide. And then God's like, Adam, where are you? I can't see you. I haven't heard from you in a while. And they're like, well, we were naked and ashamed and we were afraid, and so we were hiding. And he's like, well, who told you you were naked? And they just knew because they had tasted that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. But so God confronts Adam. It's important to realize he went to Adam. Adam, where are you? And so they're trying to hide. The first thing Adam does when God confronts him is, well, that woman you gave me made me do it, right? So all in that one thing, he blames God for giving him the woman, and then he points the finger at her. Well, she made me do it, right? And we've been doing that ever since. So that's what sin does for you, right? You want to hide. You want to blame somebody else. You want to cover it up. You don't want to deal with it, okay? Now, it's the whole point of all that is just so you have a really good understanding of the foundation and the beginning of marriage, right? God created a man, and then he created a woman, and he told them to be one flesh. And you will become one flesh with your wife, right? So that's the beginning of marriage. That's the way God designed it. That's the way he set it up. One man, one woman. Adam didn't really have any decisions to make. God brought him one, a woman, a wife. He didn't have to go looking. He didn't have to go hunting. God provided. So what we have in today's economy is everything is extremely sinful these days. Most people are going hunting. They're looking for what they want when they want it, and God's really not involved in that. So it's important to understand, and we get into this in the other class, the Beyond Divorce, because so many people don't get the beginning, they don't get the first one right, so then they try to do it again, but they want to do it according to what they want, right? And it's usually the wrong time, the wrong reason, the wrong person, and all those kind of things. So it's important to make sure you're in line with God's will for you so that when he brings someone, you're ready, you're whole, and hopefully they will be too, because as much as some people think they can fix the other one, you really don't want a project. If you get a project, you're both going to be in a bad way. You're both going to get frustrated. You're going to get upset. You're going to probably get angry at each other because you're not getting what you think you deserve.
But that's where the DIY YouTube channel comes in handy, right? Do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's only for...
Now, when it comes to being a Christian, it is DIY. It is do it yourself. Do you yourself. Don't do the other person, right?
Just because 19 years is under your belt doesn't mean it's any easier.
No. Well, if it's 19 years or 23 years in our case, and you've done it wrong the whole time, well,
But we didn't know it was a project.
most projects are usually,
Our life or anything. We didn't know.
most projects usually end up being, yeah, but they're usually over budget and over time, right? So yeah,
I do the paint because I get to like tape off and sometimes wipe him up, because I take them out.
right, yeah, that was the first place I figured the tape would go, right, on the mouth.
Another thing that I had heard that sometimes when we do get those projects and then they do become what we want them to become, we don't like them anymore. And I think you talked about,
Oh, yeah.
about that later.
Right, that's a good point. You
Talked about the feminization of man because we have a tendency to want to create, or even women too, but as women create men after our image, and then we don't like what we created.
Yeah. Well, the way things have, been distorted because of that's the way Satan works, right? The whole evil, everything gets distorted. It sounds good, like equality. Well, in God's kingdom, the husband and the wife are equal, but they're very different. Today, equality just means the same. It's not a value statement, it's a performance statement, right? Now, whoever does a job should get the same amount of money for doing that job.
But women still don't.
But, well, there's a lot of things, yeah, it's not fair. Life is not fair.
Yes.
Life is spiritual warfare, right? So, and the fact that because of the sin back here in the garden, there is a curse on the ground that Adam's going to have to deal with the thorns and the thistles and the weeds and everything else to be able to provide the food that they need to eat. And Eve was cursed directly that she would have pain at childbirth, and her desire would want to be in charge.
Can I go back and smack her for that one then?
Well,
Just the childbirth part. That sucks.
yeah. Well, that's part of the curse, right? All from disobedience.
Yeah, but I
Right.
had 6 of them. That was enough.
I won't go there.
I didn't learn the first time.
Now, it's bad enough for the pain in childbirth, but the real deal is the other one, that her desire is going to be to want to be the lead. At least equal in leadership. Okay? That's her desire. But the curse part is she was going to have to, her husband is going to rule over her. Now, going back in the old Hebrew and everything, rule is like the evil kings, the way they ruled their kingdoms. It was not nice. So you end up with a husband that is angry all the time, abusive, all those kind of things, right? So that's part of the curse back in the garden. Now, this is all about trying to be a godly marriage, godly spouses, just Christians, Marriage is spiritual warfare. Life is spiritual warfare. And if you really don't understand that part, you're going to be a casualty of the warfare, right? It's kind of like going out into battle with just shorts and a t-shirt. You don't have any armor, you don't have any tools, you're going to be dead, right? You have nothing to protect yourself. And that's why God gives us a suit of armor to put on, so we can go into battle. Life is a battle. And especially when you become a Christian, you've just volunteered to be in God's army. So he has missions for you to go on. And he wants you to go take some territory and fight the enemy and all that kind of stuff. So
When do we know we've taken enough?
God will let you know.
Let me know soon. I'm getting tired.
Well, not always, but a lot of times when God says, okay, you're done, he takes you home. So
I don't want to know soon.
if you're not home, if you're not really home yet, you're not done yet.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah. And, grandchildren are a blessing, right?
They are.
So, anyway, so God created us in His image, and it was to take dominion, also to put His image, go forth and multiply and put His image out there. Part of taking dominion was to spread His image all over the planet. Kind of forgot that part. But that was probably even a bigger part. It was His image He wanted spread, not just more people. He wanted His image everywhere so that His image would be out there taking dominion over everything. And what we find today is a lot of what's out there, plants, different things, chemicals are taking dominion over us, drugs, alcohol. Most of that stuff comes from plants and other things that are in the earth. So, okay, one man, one woman. Marriage is supposed to be until death do us part, a covenant. This is blended families, so most of us in here are, or at least part of us, is not on their first marriage.
Or different religions, different cultures, that's
Yep.
other blending too, right?
Right? Yeah, we'll get into all that next week, all the different kinds of blending. But yeah, it's not just after divorce. Some spouses die. People get remarried after that. Okay? That's a blended family again. We both experienced that kind of deal. All right? One man, one woman, one flesh, covenant, till death do us part. One of the things that spouses tend to do, and this works in any marriage, even if it's the first one or not, put faith and trust in God, not your spouse. When you put your trust in your spouse, it probably means you're not quite whole yet, because you're looking at your spouse to provide something that you need or you think you need. What really works good for a marriage is when you're whole and they're whole. If either party, and in most cases both, are not whole, they're going to be sucking the life out of each other. Right? People look at each other as, back in, what was that, Jerry Maguire, the movie? You complete me. That's a lie. That's Hollywood. That's fairy tales.
It's all a lie.
God completes us. Right?
But Hollywood doesn't know.
Well, they lie. It's all fairy tales. It's a movie. It's entertainment. God is truth, and He fills us up from above. All good things come from above, so we get filled from above so that we can pour out in the horizontal. If we're looking horizontally for somebody to fill us up, then we're taking away from them. Now, where are they going to get filled? Well, if they're 75% and I'm 50, I'm looking for the other 50 to come from them, right? And they're looking for 25% of me to fill them up. So everybody's going to be short. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to trust God first, and we'll get to that in just a second. Don't be looking at your spouse to fix you, to provide what you need, because they're looking for something too. Mm-hmm. God needs to be the source. When you understand that marriage and life is spiritual warfare, and you get filled from above, not from side to side, now you're on your way to a pretty good foundation for how to deal with a spouse, right? Because they're the tool that Satan's going to use against you. And if you guys are good, and you got kids or other family, they're going to be the tools. So you got to be that one flesh so you can fight that stuff. Okay, faith and trust in God, not the spouse. God is a God of order, not chaos. Chaos comes from the dark side, right? So I'm going to get into the relationship priority pyramid here in just a second.
Let me just interject something here to go with what you just said, Larry.
Okay.
I heard something, someone had said a few months ago, and it's very true. Satan speaks to our minds. God speaks to our hearts. So if you're ever being conflicted, hearing different things in your mind or in your head, remember that. Satan speaks to your mind, but God speaks to your heart. If you keep that in check, you'll be fine. But a lot of times we get confused.
One of those little tidbits I like, sort of along those lines. Satan knows your name, but calls you by your sin. God knows your sin, but calls you by your name.
I had a question. On that, is that like an alcoholic? He would say, oh, go get a drink type deal. Is that what you're referring to?
Could be. I mean, the temptation to go
Yeah.
drink and see that it's all about your identity. Satan knows your name,
Right.
but he keeps calling you by, hey, alcoholic.
Right.
You're an alcoholic. You're an alcoholic, right? God's like, yeah, I know you're an alcoholic, but I know who you are.